So
are lawyers all retarded?
That's actually not even remotely the case. So you either
political opponents is actually the
so you either lied when you said you were a lawyer, or you're just carrying water for the administration. You will never find a statement by Joe Biden that is the equivalent to Joe Biden telling Merrick Garland, "Hey, can you prosecute my political opponents?" Because those statements don't exist.
I'm sorry, but you didn't. You have not stopped Josh from speaking over me.
I have indeed.
Time he's interrupting you and responding. But
we're giving everyone fair time. We're giving everyone fair time, Amani. So just a moment. Let's let Josh respond.
But go ahead, Josh. Let's pat Josh on the head. Go ahead and share your opinion.
But we on Counterpoints give everyone the right to speak, so we need to get Josh's response to your comments.
We know he needs the right to defend himself. Go ahead.
Everyone deserves it. Josh, go ahead.
Oh, that's all a lie. That's all a lie. It's all a lie. Everything he just said was a lie. I don't think because I interviewed so much before. I don't know. I don't think also, the president has decided it's unconstitutional. Excuse me. Eat my whole ass, you fucking retard. The president doesn't get to decide what's constitutional or what's not constitutional. That's not his fucking job. And
you're from Florida. What in the world do you know about what New Yorkers want?
We need to keep moving on.
They were voting on
inflation. I'm really sorry, but you didn't ask him to stop and let me finish when he was interrupting me, so I think that I should be able to.
Not this individual panelist on this show's bespoke foreign policy issue that has no relevance to the day-to-day New York.
Okay, I'm going to move us
like
on.
A random man from Florida that wants
the box of nuclear weapons to Jerusalem, and he needs to say, okay, Israelis, Palestinians, negotiate peace. Whoever comes closer to actually reaching, is willing to get more concessions. If the other side doesn't and they can't reach a deal, they give the other side the nukes and they blow them up, okay? Because I cannot wait until we stop talking about Israel-Palestine in my goddamn country, okay? It's the mayoral election of New York City. Who cares? You can't even enact ICC warrants. Even the United States can't. We're not even Rome Statute signatories. Who cares about the friggin' Israel-Palestine? It's the New York City mayoral election.
Weren't you...
Okay. We need to keep moving this on. We cannot get bogged down into an Israel-Palestine debate. Amani, I'm going to have to interrupt you there because we need to keep going on.
They're putting their phones away before they commit them.
We need to keep moving on, Amani. So I'm going to move us on.
Israeli news channels just for that piece of advice. Yeah.
Thanks very much. I'm going to keep us moving on to focus specifically on the implications of this election because it's a local race, but it's a local race for control of one city. An important city, no doubt, but a mayoral race nonetheless. However, it is the first general vote since President Trump retook the White House, so it is symbolic in value. That can't be denied. We saw Democratic governor wins in Virginia and New Jersey. Gavin Newsom's redistricting proposal got through in Victoria. So it has led a lot of people to say that this was and always was going to be a litmus test for the Republican Party. Stephen, I'm going to bring you in here first. Was this a referendum on President Trump as much as it was about local politics?
I hope so. I think that for the first time, we're finally seeing, especially through Gavin Newsom, like Democrats putting forth a positive position. It's not just attacking the right. It's not just standing in opposition to some of the insane stuff that Trump is doing, which they should be, but it's having actual figures for us to rally around. I just think contrasting the behavior of Gavin Newsom to Greg Abbott and the way that Congress basically passed, by decree to Abbott, hey, you can go and mess up all your districts now. And then, they just on their state assembly, they're like, oh, okay, we're just going to go ahead and redistrict everything. For Newsom to go, that's not okay. We don't accept that. We're going to do it here in California, and we're going to do it via a public referendum to our own citizens that initially started off as unpopular because the initial thing when that was floated was like, I don't know if the Democrats can do the redistricting, for California. It's built into the Constitution. They're going to have to pass a referendum, and that's not very popular right now. And to carry that through to fruition and then to see nationwide in Virginia, we see Democrats are winning, moderate Democrats are winning, sometimes up big. That's good. We saw Mamdani win in New York, despite Trump trying to, support Cuomo. Yeah, I think it's good for Democrats. I hope it's, pointing good towards the midterms for us, assuming Donald Trump lets us hold those elections in a free and fair manner.
Amani, was this a litmus test for Trump and for MAGA popularity?
I think it was a tremendous litmus test. It shows truly that, MAGA is doubling down on the racism and the bigotry and the white supremacy, quite frankly. And it is going to be a reckoning for the Democratic Party. I think Zaharan's race has proven that if the Democrats don't catch up, they're going to keep losing seats and the party itself is going to be left behind. If there is going to be that reckoning, if there is going to be a pendulum swing, back to sanity in this country, it's not going to come from the Democratic Party. That's not where our salvation is going to be. It's going to be coming from the people. The people are going to be organizing the people are going to be protesting more. They're going to be taking to the streets more. And especially if the economy keeps going down the way that it is right now, it's going to get I think it's going to force the hand of a lot of our leaders to actually own up to a lot of their policy decisions and answer to the demands that the people are making.
Josh, is this going to reverberate to the White House? Is this a commentary on how the president has run his first year back in office?
I think it's impossible to avoid that conclusion to an extent. The emphasis should be on to an extent. We're talking here about a mayoral election, albeit an extremely important one, and then a couple of gubernatorial elections in light blue states, New Jersey and Virginia, albeit the margin in all three of those races, the mayoral race and the two gubernatorial elections, those margins were all higher than the polls predicted, certainly higher than I predicted as well. So on the one hand, I would be cautious of overly interpreting and overly extrapolating. But yes, I think it is certainly fair to an extent to conclude that Republicans have some work to do. I mean, not just the Trump administration, but Republicans in general there. Because take us back to our earlier conversation. Again, it is my thesis that the reason that Zohran Mamdani won this election, in addition to being the Democratic candidate in a very Democrat city, is that he did, contrary to one of my co-panelists' assertions, he did emphasize to the, not the exclusion, but over above any other issue, he emphasized economic issues. Again, I think his stances on those issues are nuts, but he talked over and over again on his various economic policies and proposals there. And I think that it is incumbent on Republicans to realize that, unfortunately, the Republican Party, which is in the midst of kind of this generational rebrand, presenting itself as more of a middle and working class party, a rebrand that I have personally very much encouraged. I've written thousands of words on this about various policies and this and
Wait, this guy does sound kind of like Ben Shapiro, right? Am I kind of? Oh, Google Meet. Google Meet. Fuck my audio again. I see it. Fuck, hold on.
Kind of vestigial cachet when it comes to being the party of the proverbial little guy. And Republicans have a lot of work to do when it comes to building trust, when it comes to fighting inflation, boosting wages, reshoring jobs, things like that. So those are all the various bread and butter issues that I hope the Republicans are able to double down on in the year ahead until the November 2026 midterms.
Amani, President Trump threatened to withhold additional federal funds to New York other than the very minimum required if Mamdani was to win. Is that an abuse of power, and is that going to play exactly into Mamdani's playbook of standing up to power?
Power grab, Donald Trump has been holding federal funding hostage from states to politicize the reason why he's providing funding that they are entitled to. And so it comes as no surprise to anybody, but I will say that I was there last night at Zohran's victory party when the results came in. And during his victory speech, when he said to Trump, turn the volume up louder, the entire room went into a roar. And you know that this is the precipice of a MAGA showdown. And the people are ready for it. I don't think that New York is intimidated by any threats from Donald Trump whatsoever. If anything, they're going to hold down the fort and really lead by example for the rest of the country of what it looks like when we really fight for our rights.
Josh, if President Trump does stick to what he says there, is that going to backfire on the Republicans? Is that just going to be seen as exactly what Mamdani is trying to fight against?
Is what going to backfire exactly?
If he withholds federal funding from New York purely because the candidate that he doesn't like won the election.
Well, that's not why he would withhold federal funds. I mean, to be clear, if that is the literal stipulated reason, then yes, he would deserve backlash, and I'm sure that backlash would happen. But when presidents, including this president, talk about the possibility of withholding federal funds when it comes to DOJ grants, there typically those funds are done because those funds come with strings attached to them, and there are various things that local departments can't do. So I mean, not to go full legal nerd, but there's actually a whole body of constitutional precedent on this. There's a 1987 case called South Dakota versus Dole, which really elaborates on the exact nexus.
But all that aside, he did say, I'm not going to send good money after bad. I'm not going to give them any more than the minimum if Mamdani wins. He said it. He's not saying, I'm going to wait and see how he spends the money.
Yeah, this is typical Trumpian rhetorical flourish. This is how the man communicates, both in real life and on his Truth Social feed. And then it's up to Attorney General Pam Bondi and the various lawyers to actually put that into constitutionally permissible legal practice. So, for instance, if you're talking about DOJ grants to local police departments, it would be constitutional under the South Dakota versus Dole precedent and other precedents. It would be constitutional to withhold DOJ grants for local police departments if those local police departments do not do anything to assist ICE, immigration enforcement operations, or things like that. All of that is perfectly constitutional, and that, I think, would be the way to actually translate that Trumpian impulse into practice.
Mamdani's also...
I'd like to jump in here.
Just to be clear on that, this is not an ordinary state of affairs. There's no other president that has ever played games with, especially FEMA funds in the way that Trump has, and there is absolutely no legal permissibility for Trump to do the things that he does. I don't know where this idea comes from, that these are just Trump rhetorical flourishes. I think you could have gotten away with that in Trump term 1, but Trump has enacted through multiple ways, playing illegal games with FEMA funds and doing illegal things as president of the United States. The idea that it's Pam Bondi's job to put these into legally permissible actions is a joke. The administration, is fighting more legal battles in their first year than some presidents have fought in the entire 4 years or 8 years that they've been president.
A lot of those
Donald
started
Trump's
by
issued,
the
I think,
insurrection. But
more started by what?
By rogue lower court judges. I mean, Jeb Boasberg in D.C., Judge McConnell in Massachusetts. I mean, depends on
those
the
are,
issue.
so
a lot of the,
I'm not sure what country you're
from.
I'm from the United States of America, and those are federally appointed judges. You don't get to call them a rogue judge.
I'm actually
a ruling
a
you don't like. And what you do is you appeal.
I know what I'm talking about here.
Oh, then in that case, then you know better, and you shouldn't.
If I can jump in and just simplify this,
administration. And I just want to be to be clear, Biden, no other
basic terms,
one at a time. Amani, hold that
bigger picture.
Destiny, Stephen, finish your point there. I'm going to hand it to Amani. Finish your point there, Stephen.
Trump did not say, I'm going to pull the strings on funding to New York City if they are using funds in ways which are impermissible based on current guidelines of the DOJ. Trump said that he didn't want to allow funds to New York City in an attempt to threaten or blackmail voters into making them think they're not going to get federal funds if they elect a mayor that he doesn't like. The idea that you might find some way pretextually, that's a word you might like as a lawyer, that you might find some way pretextually to justify some weird contingency on your funds or to withhold them as a result doesn't matter.
It's rhetoric
because that's what influences how
Donald
people
Trump's
vote.
social statements literally. I find that utterly astonishing. You should have learned literally a decade ago. It's not to take what he says.
Well, Trump is literally putting law firms and literally putting lawyers in executive orders, and he literally ordered Pam Bondi to begin to politically prosecute his opponents, and now this is literally showing up in indictments that are literally going in front of federal judges. So it seems like it's actually happening.
That was actually what Merrick Garland and Jack Smith did to Donald Trump himself, as well as a very slew of others. People like Steve Bannon, who literally went to jail.
What a retard!
Notion there. So
our lawyers all retarded?
Actually, not even remotely the case.
Literal
So
prosecution
you either
of political opponents is actually the
so you either lied when you said you were a lawyer, or you're just carrying water for the administration. You will never find a statement by Joe Biden that is the equivalent to Joe Biden telling Merrick Garland, "Hey, can you prosecute my political opponents?" Because those statements don't exist. Donald Trump puts them on Truth Social. He named Letitia James, he named James Comey, and he named Bolton, and he named the prosecutor that he wanted to prosecute them. And all three of these people are now mysteriously indicted. To compare that to Joe Biden, who presided over a presidency where
the
a special
Attorney General and DOJ
was appointed to investigate his own documents case, is absolutely absurd. You're living a fantastic delusional land to even try to draw the equivalent there.
Okay, Amani, I'm going to bring you in, give us your point of view, and then I'm going to move us on to a Democratic focus.
Listen, at the end of the day,
I have a new strategy for talking to people, okay? Have I ever said this before? I thought of this on my flight over to Virginia. When I listen to people now, I try to listen to people and try to think, instead of being like in the moment in the conversation, I listen to them and I imagine that I'm at home listening to them on stream, thinking like, what would I say if I heard this motherfucker say this on stream? And then whatever pops in my head there, I say it in the conversation. So ordinarily I wouldn't interject here, but then I'm listening to this guy saying it and I'm like, I know that if I listen to this back on stream, I'm gonna be thinking, what do you mean? You're a lawyer and you're saying that this happened to me? And then I just think from that perspective, like, what would I say if I was listening? And then I just say that. That's why I was a little bit more aggressive when I was at Virginia Tech. And that's why I keep interjecting here, because I'm like, hold on. If I hear him say this and I'm listening to this later, I'm gonna be so mad that I didn't say this. And then I just say that thing, you know?
To make it as clear as possible, the bigger picture here is that, yes, Donald Trump is gutting the American Constitution. He's been doing this since the very start of his presidency. In fact, he's been serving as president to foreign countries more than the American public. He has violated so many of our constitutional rights He's speaking about removing term limits from the presidency so that he can literally become a tyrant over us. So the fact that he's threatening to withhold funding because he doesn't like the mayor that a city has elected, this is not a surprise. And he has done this already. Josh, I'm sure you will hate to be reminded of the fact that Donald Trump actually restricted federal funding and completely gutted the jewel of the American academic system, which is our Ivy League schools, in order to censor criticism of our foreign ally Israel. Donald Trump is sacrificing American rights
as 1964.
And
he's really enforcing Title VI, which we can discuss if you really want to go.
I just didn't want to interject here because I'd already had like a minute over. Actually, I might after this. I'm not sure.
For outside,
I don't think I do though, because it's so much. Okay.
And this is a litmus test of where the people stand, more than the Republican Party or the Democrats. It's a litmus test of what the people are demanding. Josh, I know that this is the bane of your existence because you care more about Israel's interest than anything else. And
There's
everything
one person who is undermines that.
Josh, let Amani finish, and then I'm going to bring you back in.
Yeah, because it's the center. It's the center of everything right now. Hello, newsflash.
It is not.
We exist
I live in the United States. Where do you live?
Genocide is happening.
I'm focused on American issues.
We are funding.
Josh, just let Amani finish. I'm going to bring you back in.
There is nothing more important or prominent than that. You keep talking over me because you don't want people to hear the truth. Our tax money is being used predominantly to fund the extermination of a people on the other side of the world, and it's being done by
Amani, I'm gonna
that you are positioning as above the interests of the American people. That's what's happening here. And yes,
Amani,
it is the most important point of our current political system.
Okay, I'm going to move us on there. Josh, a quick response from you to give you the right of reply, and then I'm going to refocus again back specifically on this mayoral election campaign and what it means for the Democrats.
The right of reply. He has the right to defend himself. Go ahead. You had way more.
Amani, please just let Josh.
Go ahead with your other talking points.
Josh has the right to respond to your comments. Josh, go ahead.
Really stupid.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you didn't. You have not stopped Josh from speaking over me.
I have indeed.
He's interrupting you and responding. But
we're giving everyone fair time. We're giving everyone fair time, Amani. So just a moment. Let's let Josh respond.
Go ahead, Josh. Let's pat Josh on the head. Go ahead and share your opinion.
But we, on Counterpoints, give everyone the right to speak, so we need to get Josh's response to your comments.
We know he needs the right to defend himself. Go ahead.
Everyone deserves it. Josh, go ahead.
Okay, very briefly. Donald Trump's righteous crusade against America's higher education establishment is primarily about rooting DEI. It's primarily about rooting diversity, equity, inclusion programs. The post-constitutional vestige of the Harvard versus Students for Fair Admissions case Supreme Court in 2023. This is the executive order they signed back in January. They interpreted DEI programs, which are overtly racist insofar as they are anti-white. They are also anti-Christian, anti-Mormon, and yes, anti-Jewish. These policies are contrary to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. They are also unconstitutional under the 14th Amendment in light of the Harvard affirmative action case of the Supreme Court 2 years ago. That is what Donald Trump is enforcing. Those are the lawsuits. Those are the high-profile settlements. That is the Columbia University case, the Princeton Harvard cases. That's what he is doing.
No, that's all a lie. That's all a lie. It's all a lie. Everything you just said was a lie. I don't think because I interjected so much before. I don't think also, the president has decided it's unconstitutional. Excuse me. Eat my whole ass, you fucking retard. The president doesn't get to decide what's constitutional, what's not constitutional. That's not his fucking job. And if he said the Supreme Court decided that it was unconstitutional, then why is it still policy on the books? You're trying to transfer whatever they said about affirmative action into all of DEI across the entire country. You don't get to do that. And the president sure as fuck doesn't get to do that.
Minds or the eyes of my patently obsessed co-pals interlocutors about enforcing this nation's civil rights laws.
Okay, all right. I need to keep us moving on because we are really running short on time and we have a whole segment on Democrats that we need to get through. So much of what is being read into Mamdani's victory is not least that it signals this new path out of the political woods for the Democrats, which is what, Amani, you were pointing to at the very beginning of our discussion. The party has been struggling since that embarrassing loss in last year's presidential race, and it sank to historical lows in favourability polls this year. But just how galvanizing can this victory be when you have senior Democrats, like the senior Democrat in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, didn't even endorse Mamdani and still won't say if he even voted for him on Tuesday, and House Leader Hakeem Jeffries withheld support until the day before early voting started. So, Stephen, does Mamdani's victory further highlight the party's internal identity crisis?
No, like I said, everybody's over-indexing on this guy in whatever way is politically suitable to them. People on the far left look at Mamdani as some referendum on the party. The reality is that over the past 12 years, ever since the Justice Dems appeared, ultra-progressives or, these Marxist-Leninist, tanky, whatever socialist people keep thinking there's going to be some huge uprising with socialist, ultra-progressive, ultra-left, whatever candidates winning, and they don't. They keep losing over and over and over and over again. Now that they have Mamdani, they're like, oh my God, this is what we've been waiting for 12 years. New York City is a very blue city. Mamdani is not very popular amongst the entire Democratic Party. For all the criticisms I have of Schumer and Jeffries, I understand them not endorsing him necessarily. I don't know why we would necessarily look to senators or congressmen to endorse, mayoral candidates in New York City. I don't even know how appropriate that is or historically what the precedent is for that. Like, it makes sense that they wouldn't. Mamdani won his election. I'm glad that he did. Again, he still elected me, but if you're in New York City, I would probably support the Democratic candidate over any conservative one, especially when the conservatives have tried to use blackmail from the DOJ to control the mayor of New York City. So yeah, I think that you saw a lot of Democrats winning yesterday in very moderate ways, in which the far left was predicting, that the Virginia races wouldn't go the way we wanted them to. We won even the attorney general seat there, despite the text messaging and everything with Jones. And we won in New Jersey, and you don't need this far left movement across the entirety of the United States to win in all these elections just because a pretty far left guy won in New York City.
Is it unique to New York City, Amani? Is this the start of more far left success across the country, or are we seeing a more divided Democratic Party than ever?
I think the Democratic Party has remained divided right now. I think that's pretty obvious by the slow pace that we've seen a lot of Democratic leadership show when it comes to support behind Zohran. And that divide is very palpable because what it is saying is that so many of our Democratic leaders are paid for and bought for interests that are contrary to their very own constituents. That people are capable of organizing against the policies that are negatively impacting them. And I truly hope that this does inspire more of that organizing across the board. Like I said, if we see that change happen, if we see that watershed moment, it's not voluntarily going to come from Democratic leadership. It's not going to come from the party itself. It's going to be coming from the people forcing the leaders they want to see into those seats. Because as it stands, also the Democratic Party has a lot of red tape. The establishment has a lot of red tape in order to make it very difficult to disrupt the status quo, to rock the boat for incumbents that have held on to their seats for entire lifetimes. I mean, the incumbent that I ran against for Congress has held on to his seat for longer than I've been alive, even though his interests are contrary to those of our constituents. So it just shows that if what they say about an immovable object, right, it has to be met with force if we're going to see that change happen.
Mm-hmm. Josh, is the media getting too swept up in the star power of one man? Has he single-handedly rejuvenated the left?
Well, single-handedly, I think, is a very strong way of putting it, but this is definitely a massive boost. I mean, for Democrats in the first major elections in the first year of the Trump administration. Zohran Mamdani, for what I have been very critical of him, I disagree with him on virtually everything, but he's clearly a very talented politician. I mean, he's clearly a very smooth talking guy. He's a good looking man. He presents very well. He seems amicable and jovial. I mean he's clearly a very skilled politician. And I think a lot of folks have made the analogy to Barack Obama on the campaign trail back in 2008, the whole hope and change thing, and this is going to be this is obviously the test for Democrats. I mean, after Kamala Harris got shellacked in the 2024 presidential election, losing all 7 swing states, it seemed to a lot of folks that the path to relevance for the Democrats was to shift at least a little bit towards the center. And you actually saw some inklings of that earlier this year we mentioned Gavin Newsom earlier. I mean, even Gavin Newsom on that conversation with my late friend Charlie Kirk, Gavin Newsom in that conversation with Charlie actually talked about how Democrats have gone too far on the transgender issue, biological males and women's sports, and so forth. So there actually were some inklings that Democrats were thinking of moderating on some of these cultural issues. And then we got the election of Mamdani in New York City, and that just throws a massive...
It doesn't throw a massive anything. What people care about this election way more than they should. Oh my God. Like, he ran, he won, good for him. And then that's it. It's the New York City election, okay? For mayor. That's it. It's not head of even the DNC or head of any, it's just the New York City mayoral election. That's it.
Fork into the wrench, so to speak. So it is a big conversation for Democrats. It's obviously an ideological kind of, injection straight into the veins of the far left flank of the Democratic Party. And that's only going to, I think, prolong and
The far left flank doesn't even really exist legislatively. It's just people online.
Exacerbate their kind of internecine civil war that's happening on the left, because it really does slow down the force of moderation. No doubt about that.
Mm. Amani, we saw 2 moderate governor candidates win their elections. So could there be a bit of a risk of saying, well, look, moderate Democrats are still providing what the party needs. Maybe this is just a New York blip, and the moderate Democrats are going to be the ones that forge ahead from here?
I think that Kamala's presidential race...
I missed that.
Sorry, Amani, go ahead.
I think that Kamala's presidential race... Right, I think that Kamala losing as badly as she did was a referendum of that fact, right? It is a losing strategy for the Democrats to try to...
Destiny, bruh, you've been crying all year for someone to stand up to Trump, and now you're like, whatever. I just got one guy. It's so hard. Somebody give that guy mod. You know what? Demon Time. You're a god, okay? You are a god in chat, all right? You just inflicted so much psychic damage on me. That was just the perfectly... It was just such a well-constructed, retarded fucking comment. I respect it. Player to player, I respect the fuck out of that comment, okay? You got me. So good. Good job, dude.
Give more of the same and push more towards the right in order to try to appeal to voters. It makes absolutely no sense. It doesn't reflect the polls. It doesn't reflect the interest. It doesn't reflect the outspoken opinions of the people that they're representing. If anything, it is this push that we're seeing Zahran lead the way on, which is going further to the left, further into progressivism that the people are yearning for. Because right now, both of the parties have been looking identical for a very long time. For many, many election cycles, we've been asked to choose the lesser of two evils. And I think the American people are sick of that. We don't want to keep voting for the lesser of two evils. We want to vote for something good. And in order to put something good...
What's the damn takeaways from Mamdani's win? No, I mean, not much. It's New York City. It's a very, very, very blue place. Like, who was he running against? He was running against Cuomo, who has a ton of problems in and of himself. He's just like, yeah, it's New York City. It's a blue place. If anything, like, lessons to learn, I would say, from Mamdani's campaign. Mamdani ran a really good campaign. I thought all of his commercials and everything were really funny. I don't know if it's like the way I've described this on a few shows, it feels like you're watching like almost like a segment from The Daily Show. It just feels very fresh and modern. This is even a year ago. Like even for these, and I think he's even had better. Can we watch this one?
This evening, New York Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted by a federal grand jury. Every politician says New York is the greatest city on the globe. But what good is that if no one can afford to live here? City Hall is engulfed in corruption.
Unscientific report.
The cost of living is the real crisis. New Yorkers are being crushed by rent and childcare. The slowest buses in the nation are robbing us of our time and our sanity.
The extended exaggerated smile he does on stage, I think is a bit too much. Well, he's, is he Arab? Or Indian? No, he's Indian. You have to, when you're brown, you got to be extra smiley to make all the white people feel safe and comfortable with you. So he has to do that, all right? It's called code switching.
Working people are being pushed out of the city they built. A mayor could change this, and that's why I'm running. I'll make buses fast and free.
So I can just get where I'm going.
I'll make childcare available to all New Yorkers at no cost.
I want to raise my kid in New York.
And I'll freeze the rent for every single rent-stabilized tenant.
These Eric Adams rent hikes are killing us.
Life in this city doesn't need to be this hard. But politicians like Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo want it to be this way. They care about their donors. They care about themselves. They don't care about you, the working class who keep this city running. This campaign is for every New Yorker who believes in the dignity of their neighbors. And the government's job is to actually make our lives better. We can afford to bring down the rent, have world-class public transit, and make it easier to raise a family. We can do all of that and so much more because this is New York. We can afford to dream.
Yeah, I don't know. I think all of his commercials are really good. This was even a more serious one, but also somebody in chat said it, and I think it's true. He can probably get away a bit with the fake exaggerated smile because he comes off as like genuinely like pretty happy and positive, and that kind of energy I think is a little bit infectious. He really does. He sounds like he's excited and he's like happy and he's passionate and he's authentic, whether he is or isn't. He sounds like it, and most of the times you hear him speak. So these are good types of candidates to run, I think. Yeah. The Instagram Reels were really good, and they got so much attention. Yeah, okay. Does it feel weird that he's younger than you? Isn't AOC younger than me? Yeah. Frost is because he's the youngest guy. Although arguably, well, it's me and I don't want to say it. Well, you shouldn't like compare positions, but Mayor of New York is probably one of the most prestigious political offices in the US, probably. Mayor of New York, I would say. Or maybe it just felt like that, especially post 9/11. But do you think that Joe Rogan's schedulers are frustrated? Like, hey, here's like 3 people that we think would be like really cool to have on the show sometime this year. And he's like, okay, as long as we're not like interrupting any of our 52 different Elon Musk scheduled appearances or any of the other failed comedian centrist bros that we have over and over and over again. Like, what does this retard even have left to say?
Say Mamdani's a swindler. I know he has a bunch of fake accents that he used to use.
Yeah.
And, but what else has he done that makes him a swindler?
What is a fake accent? Like, that he speaks differently around different people, or that he actually, like, he pretends to be British sometimes? Like, what does that mean?
Well, I guess if you say if you say to any audience whatever that audience wants to hear,
like, what was it? Full self-driving will be out next year. This thing will be out next year. This thing will be out next year. This thing will be out next year. You mean like what you've done for the entire history of running Tesla?
Sure. Instead of having a consistent message, I would say that is a swindly thing to do. Yeah. Yeah. But he is charismatic.
Wow. That was keen insight.
I am here with the mayor-elect of New York City, Zoran Mamdani. Congratulations. Thanks for coming in.
Like, yeah, actually, maybe I do hate this guy. Maybe he's like pretty privileged or something.
Zoran Mamdani.
He's like a...
Congratulations. Thanks for coming in.
He's a good-looking dude. I think it helps.
Thank you very much for having me. You broke a lot of new ground.
He's a good-looking dude.
First Muslim mayor of New York, first Democratic Socialist, first mayor to win more than 1 million votes in, 3 decades, youngest mayor in more than a century. So what is the message and the mandate behind that?
The message is about transforming the most expensive city in the United States of America into one that's affordable for each and every New Yorker. And what New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs gave us last night was a mandate to pursue the most ambitious affordability agenda the city has seen since the days of Fiorello LaGuardia. And it's time that we start to deliver it.
Well, let's dig into that, because you're talking about a rent freeze, you're talking about free buses, you're talking about free childcare. Can you do
God, I hate his policies, but that's okay.
That without raising taxes?
That's okay.
I think you can do that, and I think you have to raise taxes on the top 1% of New Yorkers who make more than $1 million a year, and you do that by raising taxes by them 2%. And then you also increase the corporate tax of New York State to match that of New Jersey. So that takes us from about 7.25 to about 11.5%, which is what we see in New Jersey. These things together raise about $9 billion, which more than pays for our economic agenda and also starts to Trump-proof our city.
But are you worried that could drive a lot of job creators out of New York?
So what I've heard from a number of business leaders is that the affordability crisis is also affecting their ability to attract and retain talent. The city's inability to provide childcare means that businesses often have to provide stipends for that childcare. Right now, the absence of universal childcare means that a family will pay around $22,500 a year, which is more money than many of them would spend if they sent that same kid to college 18 years later. And it is time for city government to actually step up to the responsibility that it has.
Not just the city government, that kind of a tax increase is going to require the state as well, including the governor, Kathy Hochul. Is she on board?
You know, I'm proud to have Governor Kathy.
Like, I wish he had actual business leaders, maybe he has in other commercials, to come forward and say stuff like this. And I'm sure you can find some. I'm sure there's probably elements of truth to it, right? Because you do have to cover for this shit. You do have to cover for this shit if you're a business. Same thing with like tuition reimbursement and stuff, right? A lot of companies offer tuition reimbursement because a lot of people can't afford the raw cost of college and everything.
The Hochul's endorsement and the endorsement of our agenda, specifically universal childcare. And I've said time and again, I think these are the two.
He's realistic. I know that people don't like to hear it, but in the United States, if you want to raise money, you got to expand your tax base. Okay, bump those rates up for everyone, and you'll make way more money. But at least he's just talking about an income tax bump, and he's not trying to do some fucking retarded weirdo wealth tax, you know?
most direct and straightforward ways to raise this revenue. If there are other ways to raise this funds, the most important thing is that we actually fund this agenda.
You said that President Trump was watching you last night. It appears that he was watching you. And it also appears that he and other Republicans are trying to...
I do like the point. I think tax reciprocity is really important. I do not like unreciprocating border states. That drives me crazy. Like something that I always thought was so stupid in Nebraska, although I just went there for trick-or-treating with Nathan. I saw slot machines in a gas station. Did Nebraska legalize gambling? Did I miss that? One thing that I was always so weird was gambling. When I lived in Nebraska 15 years ago, or when I worked at the casino 17, 18 years ago, gambling was illegal, except for Keno and bingo, I think. I don't know why. Keno and bingo. But everybody would just drive right across the not the bridge. You just go I-80 East, I guess, into Iowa, and then you go to the casinos. And they're literally right there on the fucking border. They're right there on the border. And it's like, well, this kind of feels like a bit of economic extraction. You're taking the citizens from Nebraska who are earning money in Nebraska, and then they drive right on over to Iowa, 15, 20 minutes away sometimes. And then they gamble all that money there. That goes into Iowa. Iowa taxes the casinos. They get that money for the roads. Well, fuck that. That's kind of bullshit, I feel like New Jersey, just from the little I've heard, I feel like New Jersey can have like a similar-ish relationship to New York City, to where there are people that live in Jersey, but they go to New York City, but then a lot of their money comes back to New Jersey. It's like, well, what the fuck? I don't know. There should be more reciprocated taxes there. Corporate taxes, income tax, all that. I think it should be pretty similar or the same.
Make you the poster boy of the Democratic Party. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, calls you a true extremist and a Marxist. And he says now every House Democrat incumbent and candidate will co-own Mamdani's disastrous record in the...
I live in Western Nebraska. We have skill game stores now, several of them in one city. Western Nebraska? I didn't even know they had internet out there. What's it like with you and the 42 other people that live in your city? I'm sorry, I'm being mean. I love you. Fellow Nebraskans, we got to stick together, okay?
House Democrat incumbent and candidate will...
Listen, okay, I've noticed this now, okay, especially this last year as I've traveled more and more, okay? My Midwest brothers, okay? My Kansas Cityans, my St. Louisonians, my Detroitians, Is Colorado considered Midwest? Wait. Midwest states. Or does it like end at Nebraska? Okay, fuck you, Colorado. My Midwestern big city guy, my Minneapolisonians, okay? All of you guys have an obligation to shit on anybody from Chicago, all right? Chicago thinks that they think they're the coolest city in the Midwest. They think that they're better than all of us, okay? And they're really not, okay? They have big lakes next to them. It's bullshit. They're Walking Dead. I don't care what they have in there. Fuck Chicago. Fuck Chirac. Fuck Chicagoans. They're not better than us. They think they are. You have an obligation to shit on all of these motherfuckers when you see them. And shit on their city. Find things to shit on their city about. Fuck everybody from Chicago. Also, half the people you meet that say they're from Chicago, they're not even from Chicago. They're like 2 hours away. They live in some bullshit ass suburb. Fuck you, Chicago. Right? You're not better than any of the rest of us in the Midwest. Fuck you.
Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, calls you a true extremist and a Marxist. And he says now every House Democrat incumbent and candidate will co-own Mamdani's disastrous record in the 2026 midterms. How do you respond to that?
Well, I'm looking forward to showing the power of an example here in New York City, an example of what it means to not just diagnose the despair in working people's lives as the cost of living crisis, but to deliver on it. And that's the contrast between myself and President Trump. He's someone who ran an entire presidential campaign on the promise of cheaper groceries and is now, as the president, making it harder for Americans to afford those groceries by
because basically all of it has gone up, except for eggs, by the way. With the amount of media coverage that Mamdani received this election, do you see him running for president if he does well enough? I don't know why. I'm sure if I thought about it for a little bit, I could figure it out. But I think that there's like standard paths to presidency, and I don't think mayor is generally one of them. I think it's like usually, is it like senator and governor are the two most common? What are the most common political offices held by presidents before election? Our Google guy here says vice president, governor. Shut the fuck up. Okay, that doesn't count. Governor is a big one, I believe. Senator is a big one. I don't know how many are representatives. Cabinet secretaries could be one. can't anyway because he's Ugandan. Oh, should have had the Hassan family to bring the mom over first to anchor baby him with a passport before bringing him back. But also, don't count him out. You guys have no idea how much of our electoral qualifications Donald Trump is about to rewrite.
Cutting SNAP benefits.
You worried he's going to crack down on New York City, maybe even do what he's done and tried to do in Portland and other cities, call the National Guard in?
You know, I think that his threats are inevitable. I also know that it's time we actually call this for what it is. This has nothing to do with safety. It has to do with intimidation. If it was safety, President Trump would be threatening to deploy the National Guard to the top 10 states of crime, 8 out of which are all Republican-led, but because of that party, he won't actually be doing so.
So you say you won't be intimidated. How do you stand up to it?
I think there's a number of ways. The first thing is you actually utilize the courts. You stop treating things as being law just by virtue of the fact that President Trump is saying them. You can look at the example of California, where you find the Attorney General, the governor, and the mayor of LA.
He has good concepts, and he always backs the concepts up with examples. I love examples. I try to do this. I've done this, I think, for over a year now. Like, I always, whenever you talk about a concept or everything, always ground out an example. He's very good at always, I think for almost every single concept he's talked about, he has one or more examples to point to for it. I think it's really good.
LA coming together, filing a lawsuit in opposition to the deployment of the National Guard. A federal judge found in their favor, and the Attorney General estimated that for every dollar they spent, they recovered more than $30,000 in funds that would have otherwise been seized by the federal government.
How about crime? Have you convinced Commissioner Tisch to stay on the police commissioner?
You know, I've made my decision to retain Commissioner Tisch, and I've done so because Eric Adams had stacked the upper echelons of the NYPD with incompetence and corruption. She came in, started to tackle that, deliver accountability, and reduce crime across the 5 boroughs. That is what we would build upon under a Mamdani administration, in addition to creating a Department of Community Safety to tackle the mental health and homelessness crisis head on.
You've made your decision. Has she made hers?
I am looking forward to continue to having conversations with her and to assembling a government of the best and the brightest to deliver on this agenda.
You know, last night you also said you wanted to reach out to New Yorkers who didn't vote for you. Probably highest on that list.
Also, look at the difference. He said this, I think, when he got elected too. We're just built different. We're just different people. I mean, me and like other brown people, because we're the same. No, just that, like, every time, like when Biden got elected, how many times did Biden say, "I am a president for all Americans. I'm a president for everyone in the United States," right? And Mamdani has more or less said the same in New York City, which I think is admirable. Republicans never do this because they're demons.
You know, last night you also said you wanted to reach out to New Yorkers who didn't vote for you. Probably highest on that list is Jewish New Yorkers. It looks like there was about a 30-point gap, according to the exit polls, between you and former Governor Cuomo. How do you convince those voters that your vision of New York includes them and your victory is not a threat to them?
You know, I was on the M57 not too long ago, which is the slowest bus in New York City, 4.9 miles an hour. And I was seated next to a woman who introduced herself to me as a speech therapist. And she told me that she was Jewish, and she said that her daughter is a huge fan and phone banks from college, and that she wasn't so sure. And I asked her to share, and she shared her thoughts about what it also means to be Jewish in New York City today, and the scourge of anti-Semitism that often worries her, that she was trying to sell her apartment. A realtor told her to put away, in her words, the Jewish books on her bookshelf.
On a scale from coherent but disagree with on principles to unhinged lefty bullshit, where would you rate your feelings about Mamdani's policies? The ones that I've heard just seem like standard, I wouldn't even call them like lefty or socialist. They just seem like kind of standard progressive-y politics, like rent control and stuff like that. The scariest, I was pretty aggressive in my conversation with Tom yesterday too. The scariest socialist stuff, I think, has already happened in the United States recently, and it was Trump having the U.S. government getting, are they voting shares? I still don't know the super details of that or not. In Intel and in the in that Nippon Steel U.S. Steel merger. Is that just one company now? And then the shares in that company, the 10%, those stakes. I don't know if those are voting shares or if the U.S. government is going to have a say in any of that. That's, in my mind, some of the scariest and worst type of stuff.
She was trying to sell her apartment. A realtor told her to put away, in her words, the Jewish books on her bookshelf. And I told her that this was unacceptable, that we were fighting for a city that didn't just protect Jewish New Yorkers, but celebrated and cherished those same New Yorkers. And I'm looking forward to being the mayor for every single person that calls the city home, and showing that my job is not to remake City Hall in my image, but rather in the image of struggling New Yorkers. And that means New Yorkers will find themselves and their struggles in people who have decisions.
Destiny, why? Sorry if retarded. Because the U.S. government having a stake in companies that is, one, dictated by the president is just very, there's like, it's a very simple, you would just call it a conflict of interest, right? we could imagine, 100 different scenarios where this type of thing is really weird or it plays out very strangely. So, for instance, let's say that you're a farmer in the United States, and then let's say that your neighbor is a tech worker in the United States, and let's say that the Congress wants to pass a bill, and there's two provisions being debated. One is to give $100 billion in subsidies to farmers, and the other is to give $100 billion in subsidies to tech workers, or something like this, right? Well, let's say that you happen to know that the U.S. government has a 10% equity stake in NVIDIA and has no stakes in any agricultural stuff. Well, am I to trust that the president who says he's going to veto one and not the other is doing this because he thinks one is just going to be more beneficial to the equity that the United States government has in some particular company? I don't know. One, that feels very weird to me. Two, are companies going to be doing things? Remember, companies are here to represent their shareholders. Is there going to be a world where companies start making decisions based on the president in office being able to do something bad to their company? When we say the U.S. has a 10% stake in these companies, can the U.S. divest that? Can the U.S. sell their stake in some company? Would the U.S. do that? I don't even know what the mechanism is for the United States holding those securities. All of this stuff is just stuff that I wouldn't want any company to have to consider. The U.S. government owns part of our business, and that's just a factor now. That's just very, 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 very not good. This is ignoring technically the even worse stuff. The worst stuff is really the tariff stuff, where individuals have to go to the king and cry to him to get reprieve from our weird and arbitrary and random fucking tariff schedule. So
making power across my administration.
You said a lot of that during the campaign, but it didn't seem to work with this group of voters. What more can you do now?
Well, I think there are a lot of voters for whom the trust comes from the actions that you actually take. Many have have understandably been disappointed by politics and the promises that have been made by many before me. Now my opportunity is actually to deliver as the next mayor of the city.
I was struck by a tweet that came out last night on X from Bill Ackman, who was one of your biggest opponents in the campaign. Billionaire, spent a lot of money trying to defeat you, but he did congratulate you and say he wants you to call on him to help New York. What are you going to call on him to do?
Well, I appreciated his words, and I think what I find is that there is a needed commitment from leaders of the city to speak and work with anyone who is committed to lowering the cost of living in the city, and that's something that I will fulfill.
Thanks for coming in this morning.
Thank you so much.
I also think that billionaires are like academics, and that the only academics that come out and speak publicly are fucking kind of the crazy ones. And there are so many more academics that come out and speak. I feel like the only billionaires that come out now and speak about anything public are the most retarded billionaires. Okay, listen, if you're a billionaire, you're probably more often than not a smarter individual, more competent in a whole bunch of different areas of business, have a better understanding of the economics of finance. We need more of you to come out and make your voice heard, because right now the billionaire class is not being represented by their best and brightest. Okay, they're not. We need more of the Warren Buffetts and less of whoever shows up on that, whatever that retarded podcast is, whatever that one is. Oh my God.
Good in front of people, you have to shift into something different. So right now, a lot of Democratic leaders, a lot of Republican representatives.
How would the GM ownership deal to save it during the financial crisis differ from the current Intel deal? Well, that made more sense because this was literally like a bailout to prevent our industries from going under, right? There was a crisis, and then the government had to step in to, I guess, ensure liquidity and give some capital to these companies so they wouldn't go under. And they paid back the loan, and then they, got out from that. So
something different. So right now, a lot of Democratic leaders, a lot of Republican representatives, they serve the same masters. They serve the same corporate interests. They serve the same donors, and for that reason, they sound exactly the same. And I think that's what's been so refreshing about Zohran is he's saying no, we can break out of that. We don't have to be molded by the system. We can rebuild the system.
Stephen, that's all well and good, but if he doesn't deliver, if we put him up on this pedestal, could that backfire then, and it will work against all Democrats?
No, I mean, on a personal selfish level, if he goes up as mayor and if he fails on some things, then I can point to that and I can say, well, look, far left policies don't work. We should focus more on our strong center left policies and keep pushing that because we know these work. If it does work, then I change my mind on some things. Maybe the government can intervene more in some local matters. Maybe rent control isn't as horrible as I thought it was. Maybe there are places for the government to compete when it comes to things like grocery stores or whatever. Again, he's the mayor of New York City. He's not the governor of New York State. He's certainly not the president. He doesn't hold a federal office. The idea that the entire Democratic Party, is going to shoulder itself on Zohran Mamdani's success in New York City, I just think it's a bit ridiculous. Yeah.
Josh, what do you think? Do you think there could be a risk that the Democrats could get swept?
The U.S. Steel deal is sort of like that. Stop saying anything that Trump does is good, okay? The issue with Donald Trump isn't even really whether the individual things he does is good or bad. The issue is that he doesn't have a comprehensive vision of anything. So even if he stumbles into a thing that might on its own be good, generally these things are only good when they're part of a more comprehensive, holistic approach to a particular thing. Like just randomly stumbling into a thing and then going, oh, well, at least he did this. It's not at least he did that, because it wasn't done appropriately. It's not part of like a larger set of actions that is utilizing, how beneficial this thing could be. And it could be rescinded the fucking next month because he's gone back and forth on so many fucking things anyway. So
swept up in this. We're going to see them move. I mean, the Republicans got quite swept up with President Trump and his personality. They've moved in that direction. Are we going to see the same things? Could the Democrats learn that lesson now?
Look, the United States is a very large country, and the brand of Democratic Party politics that leads to electoral success in the year 2025 in blue bastions like New York City, Chicago, and so forth is not necessarily the kind of Democratic Party brand that will lead to success in any number of other cities and states across America. So yes, there absolutely is, I think, a huge concern. I mean, far be it for me to advise Democrats. I wish them, politically speaking, nothing but the worst, of course. But if I were hypothetically advising Democrats, it would seem to me that there would be a real risk of trying to export the radical far-left politics of Zohar Mamdani and the DSA more broadly, and then trying to inject that into the candidates for governor in swing states like Georgia, Arizona, and North Carolina, or frankly, even for mayoral positions in swingy cities in some red states. I'm thinking like a Dallas, Texas, place like that. I don't think Zohar Mamdani's politics would fly in a place like a Dallas, Texas, for instance. I mean, Kansas City, Missouri. I mean, it's very hard to say, but I think that there absolutely is a huge risk of trying then to say, okay, this did work in the nation's largest city, and then saying, okay, it's going to work from seat to signing seat. On the other hand, again, I do think that it is definitely a bit of an injection, a shot in the arm of the far left DSA flank of the party. It's only going to, I think, exacerbate internal divides, which is at least something of a silver lining for Republicans who otherwise wake up the day after the election and are in something of a daze.
Amani, can it be transported into other parts of America? I mean, Josh.
For
your political. Thank you, and thank you to you for tuning in to the.
Thank you.